go, Brandon. Let's go, Brandon. I was trying to help clean it up for him, you know, the smelly gang of communists, Jew-hating. Are they fascists too? I think they're fascists and communists. What's the difference, really? But that was me down with the commies around the White House on Saturday. And at the end, that was me chanting, let's go, Brandon. They were using the more graphic version, as you might imagine. In fact, at the Chris Plant store, we do have T-shirts and coffee mugs with FJB, which has something to do with Joe Biden. And that was being chanted by the Democrat Party. Surrounded the White House. Joe Biden wasn't there, of course. They probably didn't know that, and neither did Joe Biden, for that matter. Funny times we're in. But my best girl and I, we did spend our Saturday. We went down to the Communist Party. It's actually the Party for Socialism and Liberation that staged this. It's anti-capitalist. It's anti-Israel. It's anti-free world. It's pro-slavery. It's pro-psychotic violence, genocide. It's pro-genocide. They love genocide. You know, Adolf Hitler's party, what was it called again, Michael? Oh, yeah, the National Socialist German Workers' Party. The Socialist Workers' Party of Germany. Yeah, that's the one. And what did they do? Well, they're well known for doing many things. They had the Holocaust of the Jewish people and the gypsies and the gay people. They exterminated they put all the gay people under the Socialist Worker Party. They had to wear the pink triangle, and they could end up in the death camps too. And of course, everybody knows, my best girl and I, we love a parade. And that's why we went down to this event on Saturday at the White House. And then we go to so many marches and rallies and things. The Democrats have made them much less fun than they used to be. Much more dangerous, violent, psychotic than they used to be. But, we still like to go. Because we love a parade and we like to see things. And the Democrats, they love a parade. They had some LGBTQ. Saturday was also the grand LGBTQIA plus parade in Washington down 14th Street and into the city. And not the same as the pro-jihad, let's kill all the Jews, wipe them out from the river to the sea march. Both Democrat Party marches, to be sure. And there was a bit of melding going on. There was a bit of, I'm sure some went home with dates because, it's a Democrat thing. How do you think you spread monkeypox if you don't pick up dates at these events? Everybody knows that. This is they do love monkeypox, don't they? They call it M-pox. Is that right? They call it M-pox now? I still like to call it monkeypox because it's more descriptive, I think, more graphic. And it gives you an image of, monkeys. Jumping up and down and doing sexual things. But that's another thing for another day. So we've, my best girl and I, we went down to the White House and they were chanting, beep, Joe Biden, while marching by the south front of the White House between the White House South Lawn and the Ellipse. And we were there and we were in front of the White House when they got all kinds of, great signs. They do artwork, they're very artistic people, very artistic. And we were there when the guy, maybe my favorite sign was, they love the F word. The F word is one of their favorite words. And they've got a sign, F Israel. I can't read the whole thing because of FCC rules and everything. Support Hamas. And they love, just in case there's any doubt that they're pro-Hamas, it's right there on the signs, and they're pro-Hamas. Hamas is a radical Islamic terrorist group, a jihadist group, a genocidal gang of blood-sopped, kidnapping lunatics. And the Democrat Party is, they are in bed, in the sleeping bag, a well-lubricated sleeping bag that no one will want to go near after all this. But remarkable stuff. And we were down in front of the White House, behind the White House. Then we went to the roof of the Hotel Washington there. There's a great scene in Godfather Part 2 in the Hotel Washington. But we went to there's a rooftop restaurant-y bar. It's not very good, but it's got a nice perch, nice view. You look down into the White House, and it's kind of fun. And we went there, and we split a sandwich, and and had a couple of beers. We did it because we were walking around, many hours walking around. Yeah, F Israel, stand with Hamas, one of the great signs. Biden's red line was a lie. Stop funding war crimes. All right, so no money to Hamas then? No money to Iran then? I think that might be a good idea. So we got all that going on. And that was a lot of fun. It was. We had a good time. It was honestly, truthfully, it was pretty mellow. They're psychotic. They got communists, literal communists, that organized the event. And they had this red, what do they call it? The red line. It's their 2-mile red line. And they had a long fabric banner that they were all holding. And as my best girl and I were circling the White House, and we did circle the White House entirely, the entire complex, they were chanting, and they had these people, usually very unhealthy-looking young people, who have their cell phones in their hands, and they're receiving the chants in real time. Like there is only one solution, Intifada revolution. That means kill all the Jews. And then there's from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. That is wipe Israel off the face of the map and kill all the Jews. Again, they're very genocidal. The Democrat Party's gone full genocide, and that's okay. And the Party for Socialism and Liberation, that's the Democrat Party too. And the newspaper, I'm holding one in my hand right now. I got 2 copies when I was down there. There are commies handing them out. They're glassy-eyed zombies. They smile at you with that glassy-eyed thing. Vote Socialist 2024 is one of the big stories. And the fight to free Palestine is a fight against imperialism. It's imperialism, you know. Isn't that a margarine? Isn't that a margarine, imperialism? But the front page of the paper with their logo for the Party for Socialism and Liberation, the giant red headline is, "Bring down the U.S. empire." Bring down the U.S. empire. You got to bring down. So you see, they want to destroy the world and kill everyone, enslave everyone. Oh, speaking of which, I was reading today, because Israel over the weekend raided the troglodytes and killed about 210 of them. About 210 of them, rescuing 4 hostages. So what is that? That is more than 50. That's 50 and 2.5, 2.5 terrorists killed for each hostage rescued. And I was doing some math on this. There are about 120 hostages remaining. And I figure if we kill 52.5 hostages, terrorists per hostage rescued, then how many is that? I need to do some math on that. Maybe Jeff is good at math. We got 120 left. And so what's 120 times 52.5? 52.5. That's the number that we'd need. And that's what the troglodytes, they should be killed because they're hostage-taking loons. And did you see, this is one of the best parts, the news media and the left, but I repeat myself, are very upset that a reporter, I'm making quotation marks with my fingers, was killed during the Israeli raid. One Israeli officer was killed too, and that's a valuable life that should not have been lost. A good person, a good family man. He was killed by the savages, and there were 200, according to the troglodytes, who you can't believe at all. And of course, it's always women, isn't it? We're thinking maybe that this is one of the most transgender populations on the planet, the Gaza, because the Israelis go in and kill 100 men, and then by the next day, they've turned into women. Have you noticed that? So they killed 100 women, but they were all men when we killed them. They became women overnight because they love to say that only women and children are killed. And then they use their own women and their own children as human shields. But I'm not getting to my point here, because one of the hostages that was rescued, a young woman, being held by these families, all right? And one of them was this Al Jazeera reporter, was a hostage-taking animal, a savage. I apologize to animals. He's not an animal. He was not an animal. He's dead now. He's a savage, all right? And and then there was, who else? A doctor, a medical doctor, and he's holding hostages, right? Because they're not doctors and journalists, they're savages. And it doesn't matter what their business card says. This is what they put scopes on rifles for people like this. So in any event, the young woman who was rescued by the brave Israeli Defense Force soldiers who risked their own valuable lives to save 4 innocent people and to take on the troglodytes from hell. One of the young women came out and made a statement after she was rescued. And it turns out, she said, that they would leave her in this room where the door was never quite closed, and they would just barge in at any time. And she said in passing that they would come in and tell her to clean the house, And I was reading this morning, and I said, well, wait a minute. So she's a slave? So the savages have enslaved their kidnapped victims, their hostages, right? And that's what we call slavery. So now the Democrats and all their hypocritical clowns are going to have to continue to support their Hamas jihad, genocide, blood-drenched, savage, rapist, kidnappers, terrorists. And at the same time, they've got to support slavery, because slavery, we've now learned, not that the news media will focus on this, she's locked in a house being held hostage by, I'm not sure if she was one being held by the savage who's an Al Jazeera reporter. I'm making quotation marks with my fingers. Al Jazeera kicked out of Israel, and this has fake journalists around the world really upset. Oh no, the First Amendment's under. They don't have a First Amendment in Israel. Only the United States has a First Amendment. Morons. First of all, and just be glad you can hang with us. You're lucky that the patriarch exists. Because the patriarchy has given you everything that you recognize to be civilization and human life. But never mind that. So the woman's being held as a slave by the savages, and then the medical doctor with his family holding a hostage too, and that's great. And again, my best girl and I on Saturday down at the White House in Lafayette Park, and the American savages, the useful idiots, the morons, they were spray painting the monuments in Lafayette Park with their BS, and I shot that audio that you heard that we came in with. That was me shooting a little video with my telephone. Does your phone do that? I found the phones have a lot of different tricks and something, but they were spray painting the monuments and nobody was arrested. Nobody was shot. They should have brought in Officer Lieutenant Byrd from the Capitol Police, and he could have shot some women. That would have been much more fun. I think while my best girl and I were there, we would have enjoyed that. Hey, look, there's Lieutenant Byrd from the Capitol Police. He's shooting women again, because these people were committing thousands and thousands of dollars in damage to public property. And this was an uprising against an established authority. Joe Biden is and that's an insurrection. That's an insurrection. It's not the only insurrection that Joe Biden suffers from, but that's another discussion. So and I have my sign right here too. I brought in a sign on a stick to the radio studio here with what do we have? Hands off Rafah. They're very pro-Rafah, these people. Amazing stuff. So we've got that, and they were spray painting the monument, and nobody, Lieutenant Byrd didn't come down there, racist that he is, to shoot any of these lefties. Nobody was arrested. Nobody's looking at years in jail. And, like that nice lady that protested, pro-life lady, 75 years old, protested at an abortion clinic that a woman was coming into in labor. That's what the Associated Press said. While they were protesting, a woman was trying to get in. I'm in labor. I need to get into the abortion clinic. And they say, no, there are no late-term abortions. No, it's not right up to the moment of birth. Because they lie about everything. If they're breathing, they're lying. It's amazing. Isn't when they're sitting there silently, they're thinking things that are not true. It's amazing. Yeah, but nobody was shot. Nobody was arrested. The nice lady, 75-year-old lady, pro-life lady in an abortion clinic, got 2 years in prison last week. On the other hand, a Democrat woman carjacked a car from the Washington Hospital Center last week with a 55-year-old lady in the car. The carjacker, a Democrat, drove the car at a high rate of speed down to the U.S. Attorney's office, crashed into the building, killed the 55-year-old lady. And the Democrat prosecutor in Washington dropped the murder and kidnapping charges against her. Charged her with, taking something that's not hers while not armed. because in D.C., murder is pretty much legal. If you're looking to murder people, this is the place to come, because there's a bunch of Democrats in charge. Amazing stuff. So 4 hostages rescued. President Trump with a big rally over the weekend, big rally. All kinds of amazing stuff. The Al Jazeera reporter and the doctor, a woman being held in slavery, just a domestic servant slave thing, but that's okay. And nobody's been arrested. Nobody's looking at jail time. Nobody is being like the people that got the permits. My best girl said, people got the permits for this. Shouldn't they be on the hook for restoring all the monuments that they desecrated over the weekend? But no, because Democrats are pro-crime and pro-criminal, pro-slavery. They are the party of slavery in the Confederacy, pro-murder, pro-kidnapping, pro-carjacking, pro-Hamas. But at least they're anti-Israel and anti-Semites because... and they brag about it. We're at 888-630-9625. All right, so many updates for you out of the Middle East, out of politics here. President Trump, Joe Biden. The lunatics in Washington, we call them Democrats. Smash capitalism, smash the U.S., you know, the Democrat Party. They're busy doing that. Let us go to the telephones, Michael. Let's go to Doug, calling from Clifton, Virginia. Douglas, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hey, Chris, thanks for having me on. I'm so glad that you brought up the rescue of the 4 hostages, including Noah Argamani, because it really illustrates the level of anti-Semitism and the level of anti-Israel sentiment in the left, in the UN, and in the Biden administration. You know, we realize in all conflicts, there's a certain fog of war, that the initial reports are always wrong. Yet over and over, when we find out the facts, we see how evil Hamas is, that it was actually an Al Jazeera reporter that was holding her hostage, and I believe the physician was her father. This is Al Jazeera that's supposed to be reporting the news that the Biden administration and the left automatically take as truth. Not to mention some of the recent attacks on leaders in Hamas were in UNRWA schools that they should not be in. It is a human rights violation.
Well, the UN is, they're bad actors in all of this. I'm going to get to Noah Argamani in just a moment, Doug. So many insane news stories, it's almost impossible to keep your head above water. I'm going back to Israel. Just one quick headline from the Washington Times in Washington, D.C. on the front page above the fold. Beijing's power elite use kin to hide wealth. So the Chinese communists with ties to Xi Jinping, the power elite, they use their relatives to hide their wealth, which is obviously what the Biden family does. That's the same thing. Investments defy Xi's war on graft. Yeah, the Biden family's habits defy my war on graft. But I saw that and I thought, gee, that sounds familiar. I wonder why. Now let me go to this and our first brilliant caller, Doug, wise in the ways of the Middle East, said he mentioned Noah Argamani, who was a young woman that was stolen and taken hostage by the savages and held for, 8 months? And 4 captives rescued by Israeli forces on the Gaza Strip on Saturday had been abducted from a desert rave, like a concert, near the border during Hamas's wide-ranging assault into Israel October 7th, the Associated Press types. One had emerged as an icon of the agonizing hostage crisis that is still far from over. Noah Argamani, 26 years old, appeared in a series of videos that captured the painful trajectory of their plight. Now, this woman was rescued, and if you watch CNN, however, you might think that she was released, because that's the headline that CNN used all weekend long. And they're attacking the Benjamin Netanyahu cabinet, where one of the officials in his wartime cabinet, Gantz, announced that he's stepping down from his post, and then he postponed his stepping down from his post. But Gantz postpones news conference after hostage release is the CNN headline. Now, that was not a hostage release. That was a daring, deadly rescue mission where brave Israeli soldiers representing civilization itself went in there and thankfully killed about 210 savages in rescuing 4 people, which I think is, a perfectly fine ratio. Let's just say 52 killed bad guys per rescued hostage. Now, this young woman, Noah Argamani, she said, "I was held at a wealthy family's home in Gaza. They kept telling me, 'You should thank God you're with us. There are far worse places,' while they're holding her hostage. While I was there, they would open the door without knocking whenever they wanted me to clean the house. Hey, it's time to clean the house. So, here's an AK-47, and we'll beat you up a little, and, maybe your hostage taker is a reporter with Al Jazeera, and maybe his father is a doctor, maybe. But listen to this, because this got my attention. It didn't get the attention of the New York Times or CNN or the Washington Post. But this is called slavery, right? This is stealing people, kidnapping them at gunpoint, brutalizing them, locking them in a compartment, and then calling on them to do your labor for you for free. This is like the Salvadoran living in Barack Obama's basement. A lot like that. John Kerry's various oceanfront mansions. Who do you think does all the work in those places? But no hostage taking, in theory. So here she is, Noah Argamani. While I was there, they would open the door without knocking whenever they wanted me to clean the house. So they kidnapped her, held her hostage, enslaved her, and forced labor to be their household staff, right? She's a house hostage, and then there are field hostages. See how that goes? All right, let's go to the telephones, because it was a great moment for the IDF, for the Israeli Defense Force, to go in and kill these savages and rescue 4 innocent hostages that had been cast into slavery and worse. So let's go to Stephen calling from Jerusalem, Israel. Stephen, thank you for hanging in there. You're on the Chris Plante Show.
Thank you. Good morning, Chris. How you doing?
Very well, very well. Good to hear your voice.
Okay, it's refreshing to hear you deliver deliver it the way it is. However, the rest of the world doesn't see it that way. As you know, the rest of the world, right wing, left wing, all the Arab media, Al Jazeera, we committed a great massacre by going and rescuing these 4 hostages. Bear in mind, as you said, she probably should thank God that she was there living with a wealthy family while the rest of them are underground in tunnels. But don't think that none of the neighbors knew what was going on. They were getting paid to house the hostages. And if you live in 2A and there's a hostage in 2B, you're going to know something about it. Additionally, the same setup was going on. I don't know if it's in detail over there. The same thing was the building across the street. Over here, the IDF and the fallen soldier is being compared to the raid in Entebbe when they rescued the hijacked hostages. So, and it's really...
Well, hang on. Since you brought up Entebbe, where Benjamin Netanyahu's brother was killed in that the raid on Entebbe as an Israeli commando.
A very complex mission. I mean, this was a very complex mission, pinpoint intelligence, and it was designed to minimize civilian casualties. I mean, that's just the way it is. And what's puzzling is the lack of understanding from the rest of the world, I should say. And I may remind everybody that there are still American hostages there. American hostages. We go back to the Iran hostage crisis. During Carter's administration, the country was livid with Carter because he couldn't get the hostages out. and voted him out of office. And January 20th, I think it was swearing day, when Reagan came in, boom, they were released. Hopefully, the world will stop when Trump is. But what's being supported is such. It's what. As I was at Jerusalem Day the other day, it was the celebration for the reunification of Jerusalem. It's a big party, big parade, and I did a little bit of interviewing for my social media stuff. And one kid said, a 17-year-old kid, he says, look, you have a free country. You can support what you want to support, but what you're supporting, whether you know it or not, it's ugly. It's ugly, and it's the epitome of evil. And Israelis are peace and loving people. We want peace. And we don't want to murder anybody. And we certainly hope that you don't either. And, really, the way he said it, this is a 17-year-old kid getting ready to go to the Army in another year and a half. And this is the way it is. And I can't, and we cannot comprehend how people don't understand what the river to the sea means. What do you do with everybody that lives here? Another kid said, you know what? If you come here, there is no apartheid here. We interact with Arabs and Israelis all day long. I just came over from what people would call the West Bank, Yehuda Shomron, over there in Gush Etzion. I go to the gym. We interact all day long. And really, all we want to do is live in peace. We coexist. That's it. All this other stuff, it's really not right. Now, the polls are, there's a lot of tense. Who do you support? Who are you afraid to support? Nobody's talking. Nobody's saying anything between the Israelis and the Arabs. But I have to tell you, what's going on in the United States and the world and this support, free Palestine and from the river to the sea, you have no idea. I laughed. Queers, the gay alphabet for Hamas, for Palestine, give me a break. Yeah, okay, so you'll have a gay club, and across the street you'll have the gay gallows over there in Gaza. Right. I mean, this is what the reality is. It's like the kid said. It's the epitome of evil.
Well, since you mentioned that, there are. My best girl and I were down at Lafayette Park and in front of the White House and around the White House and the Ellipse on Saturday, where all the lunatics were out there chanting for a genocide against the Jewish people, which is what they're chanting for from the river to the sea. And there are two big signs. I have the picture right in front of me right now, and excuse the coarse language, but it's their signs at the protest, and they're lefties, so they make it okay. It was the Gay Pride March down 14th Street on Saturday, and the pro-Hamas 2-mile red line, that both Democrat Party events. And they merged at a couple of points, and here are a couple of guys with big signs that they made themselves. Fags for Hamas. Fags for Hamas. Two big signs, red placard signs. Fags for Hamas. Now, of course, you know, and I know, Stephen, that if they went to, and I would invite them to go to Gaza, let's go to Rafah, and the only parade they have there, I was talking about this last week on Newsmax too, they've got a gay pride parade there. It starts on the roof and it ends on the ground. The guy in the parade, he should have had, the pro-Hamas guy should have had a machete. He should have had a machete because he would need to behead all of them. Yeah,
that's the way it is.
That's the way it is. Now, you mentioned a couple of things as you were laying out your case very eloquently and articulately, if I can say that. I hope that's not racist and intelligently. But, one of the lines that I like to repeat because it's true, and some people seem to be too ignorant to understand this, if Israel... and you got Israel, you got Hamas, you got the Arabs, you got the various Palestinian Islamic Jihad and Hezbollah and the rest. If the Arabs laid down their arms, there would be peace. If the Jews laid down their arms, there would be genocide. That sums things up so succinctly. I think that every school child should have that phrase on their lips. If the Arabs lay down their arms, there would be peace. If the Jews lay down their arms, there would be genocide. It's that simple. And there was a great, I believe it was Golda Meir, who said after one of the attacks by the Arabs where they got their kufis handed to them again, she said, "We can forgive you for killing our children. We'll never forgive you for making our children kill your children." And again, eloquence and civilization. It speaks to what is civilization versus what is the opposite of civilization. And by the way, you may be aware of this, Stephen, but you may not be, that the Biden administration is now floating with their friends in the news media that they may negotiate with Hamas outside of negotiations involving Israel, because they're betraying Israel at every possible turn. Every day, the Democrat Party and the Biden White House are betraying our ally, Israel. And again, now they're saying that they're going to negotiate for the release of what they say or believe is 5 remaining American hostages being held by the savages, and they will negotiate outside of any negotiations with Israel involving Israel. Just amazing.
Listen, Chris.
Yeah.
Chris, America is the laughing stock of Iran. It's the laughing stock of Hamas. It's just a laughing stock. If this was anybody else, if you lived in Rockville and somebody in Olney kidnapped, or the Klan was kidnapping an African-American kid, okay, what would you do? He's holding up in it's just, you have to think about what this is and where it comes from. It doesn't make sense, and it's evil. And this is not going to go anywhere. Look what happened when the Democrats negotiate with Iran. I mean, look at it. And it's just a laughing stock. 7 million people walk over the border in 3 years. You got to be kidding me. What country does that? What country? That's an invasion.
Right.
I have no answers other than I hope that Trump, he gets back in the White House. The rest of the world's scared of him, which rightfully so.
Yep.
And we get back to world order. That's what we need. The world order. Going back to the people and the brainless college kids. This is going to come back to bite them in the future. It really is. They're going to realize, look, we all do stupid things when we're kids, but this is really stupid. I mean, you are just supporting murderers, kidnappers, people that burned babies in tires and kids in tires alive. Okay, I heard testimony firsthand from the people that saw it. I saw pictures that I can't get out of my mind. I don't want to see anymore. It's real, and no one should experience this. And the Americans are underground. They're underground in dark tunnels. And thank God she was living at a rich guy's house, because a lot of them are not.
Yeah. Well, and the other part, you mentioned several elements of this that I was just driving that, and that is, they say there are 5 Americans being held hostage by the savages right now, and you're right, they're probably underground. They're mad rapists. They're torturers. They don't plan on returning anybody alive. They don't care about human life. They might even be worse than Democrats when it comes to that, but it's hard to say. And last time around, see, Joe Biden set the precedent, because Iran was holding 5 Americans hostage, Iranian Americans and Americans, 5 Americans being held hostage by Iran. Joe Biden gave them, you remember, Stephen, what Joe Biden gave them in exchange for 5 hostages?
$5 billion?
$6 billion, technically. $6 billion, $1.2 billion per hostage. And he gave that money to Iran, the world's #1 state sponsor of terror, which is spinning centrifuges and enriching uranium thanks to Barack Obama and Boltneck John Kerry's harebrained deal, the so-called JCPOA, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, that allows Iran to spin centrifuges, enrich uranium, advance their ballistic missile program, write death to the great Satan on the nose cones while they build nuclear weapons. Now they've violated again and again the so-called JCPOA. Enriched uranium, I think about 300 pounds worth to 60% purity, which means they're weeks, if not days, away from having functional nuclear weapons. And can they put them atop their ballistic missiles? Maybe, but they can deliver them one way or the other. And the world is about to change in very dramatic and not very positive ways, thanks to Joe Biden and the Democrats. Yeah, and now the troglodytes, they're expecting $6 billion, no doubt, since that's remember, we used to not negotiate with terrorists. We don't negotiate with terrorists. But then Joe Biden came along. Here's $6 billion for 5 hostages. Now, surprise, surprise, there are 5 more Americans being held hostage, this time by Hamas, which is funded by Iran. And Iran is funded by the Democrat Party, by Barack Obama and Joe Biden. They are not on our side. And Stephen, you mentioned the open border, as well as the gangs and the human traffickers and the child sex traffickers and the drug traffickers and the more than 100,000 American fatal overdoses every year now in the United States. A number greater than we lost in the Vietnam War, the Korean War, and all the wars after 9/11 combined in a single year. The Democrats are responsible for this. Just saying, because it's true. Joe Biden also said Iraq when he was trying to talk about Ukraine because his brain, she's a broke, she's a no good. That a brain of his. I'll get to that as well. We have that on audio for you. Let us, we don't have a ton of time, but let's go to Matt calling from Charleston, South Carolina. And Matthew, not a ton of time, as I said, but fire away.
Real quick, Chris, happy Monday morning to you. But I watched, because of you, I learned how to watch all of Biden's speeches. And I watched this one in France.
Uh-huh.
And before he went into it, all the news media says, oh, this is going to be so Reagan-esque. Well, I've got a brother that's very liberal, and he hates Reagan.
Mm-hmm.
He hates Reagan. So how come the media thinks that Biden is going to be Reagan-esque?
Well, it's silly on so many different levels, isn't it? You're right. They all despise Reagan because he was a great pro-American president. And I've got that speech coming up.